Oh man, got another couple inches of snow last night. Oh man, it's been a hell of a Saturday so far. Let's see what we got. Oh, Iowa State played today. I got a win. Well, the channel looks like it's doing pretty good. What? July 28th? What? Why is there... July 28th. It's been like 6 months. Oh my goodness. Alright. Well, good thing I got Niv-Mizzet here to save me. Alright. Boys, it has been way too long. I hope you didn't think that intro was too cringy. It has been far too long. We're going to take a look at Niv-Mizzet EDH today. We got spells for days, and I hope that you will see why this took quite a while. Of course, it took far longer than it should have, but we got some pretty powerful cards in this deck, so hope you guys enjoy. We're going to start off with our Commander Niv-Mizzet, a nice foily version. Costs 3 blue and 3 red for a 5/5 legendary dragon wizard. Can't be countered. It's got flying, and whenever you draw a card, it deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, I get to draw a card and then hence deal 1 damage. So we are going to be casting a lot of spells. We're going to be drawing a lot of cards. It's the perfect deck to get me back into Magic, to get me back into YouTube. Let's start off, though, with our creatures for the deck. Baral, Chief of Compliance. Storm, All-Star in Modern. Saw play in Standard. 2 mana for 1/3 Human Wizard. Instants and sorceries cost less, and whenever we counter a spell or ability, we get to draw a card and discard a card if we so choose. Also have Young Pyromancer, like I said, casting a lot of spells. So whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, we get a 1/1 red elemental creature token. Goblin Electromancer, same principle as Baral. We're just making our instants and sorceries cost 1 less. Gutter Snipe, another instant and sorcery spell payoff. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, we get to deal 2 damage to each opponent, particularly good in Commander, dealing 2 to everybody instead of just 1 opponent. Talrand Sky Summoner, another instant and sorcery payoff. Whenever we cast one, we get to make a 2/2 Drake with flying. Very similar to Goblin Electromancer, just making a bunch of tokens. Arclight Phoenix, the first really expensive card in the deck. 4 mana, 3/2 flying with haste, and at the beginning of combat on my turn, if I've cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells, return Arclight Phoenix from the graveyard to the battlefield. So we're just casting a bunch of spells, bringing this back. Hypersonic Dragon was actually the first card that I bought. It was the card that got me into Magic. I got an intro Izzet deck. Was the first card, or was the first thing that I ever bought. And this was the key card to it. 5 mana, 4/4 dragon, flying in haste, and I can cast I can cast sorcery spells as though they had flash, which is very nice for this deck. And finally, our last creature, Torrential Gearhulk, Fat Caster Mage himself. 6 mana, 5/6 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, we may cast target instant card from our graveyard without paying its mana cost, and then exile that spell. So speaking of spells, we got a fat stack of spells, starting off at the low end of the curve with the Brainstorm. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order for 1 mana. Drawing 3 with Niv-Mizzet in play, we get to deal 1 damage for each card draw, so we get to deal 3 damage. Basically, Brainstorm plus Lightning Bolt. So, very good. Faithless Looting, 1 mana, draw 2, then discard 2. Flashback for 2 and a red. Again, great card. High Tide allows us to ramp, if you will. Until end of turn, all islands produce an additional blue when tapped for mana. Again, just cheap 1 mana spell. And we also have a couple cards here that allow us to untap. So we can get a bunch of mana and then hopefully just combo off from there. Opt, 1 mana, scry 1, draw a card. Ponder, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library, draw a card for 1 mana. Preordain, 1 mana, scry 2, then draw. Serum Visions, draw a card, then scry 2. Vandal Blast, Commander All-Star. 1 mana, destroy target artifact you don't control. Overload for 4 and a red. Destroy each artifact you don't control. Comet Storm. X red with multi-kicker 1. Choose target creature or player, then choose another target creature or player. For each time Comet Storm was kicked, deal X damage to each of them. Good old counterspell for blue counter target spell. Double cast. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Epic Experiment, blue and a red for a sorcery. With X in its mana cost, exile the top X cards of your library. For each instant and sorcery card with converted mana cost X or less among them, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost, then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast into your graveyard. Increasing Vengeance, basically another copy spell, but if we flash it back, we get to copy that spell twice instead. Mission Briefing, blue, surveil 2, then we get to choose an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard and cast that card. We do have to pay the mana cost, but again, for just 2 mana, good value for that. Reverberate, another copy target spell. Merchant Scroll, 1 and a blue. We get to search our library for a blue instant or interrupt, reveal it, put it into our hand, and then shuffle our library. Impulse, so Merchant Scroll, a really good tutor for this deck, especially since we aren't running Mystical Tutor. 1 and a blue for Impulse. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Shuffle your library afterwards. Counterflux, blue and a red, counter target spell you don't control. Overload for 1 blue red, cast each spell you don't control. Ionize, counter target spell, deal 2 damage to that spell's controller. Sweltering Suns is a good early board wipe, and if it's in the late game and everything has more than 3 toughness, or we just don't, or if we're in a control matchup and they're not playing a lot of creatures, we can just cycle it away for 3 mana to draw a card. Chaos Warp, we get to shuffle a permanent back into a player's library, and then they reveal the top card of the library, and if it's a permanent, they put it on the battlefield. So we can get rid of a Grave Titan, and maybe they hit a land, or maybe they hit like a Llanowar Elf or something. But there is a risk to that. We could also target one of our own things, so we could target one of our lands and hope to get, like, a Planeswalker or something. Pieces of the Puzzle. I found that this card is actually really good. 3 mana, we get to reveal the top 5 cards of our library. Put 2 instant and or sorcery cards from among them in my hand and the rest in the graveyard. So if we hit 5 spells, we put 2 into our hand and the rest in the graveyard, and hopefully we will get to cast those later anyway. Stroke of Genius, X, 2 and a blue. Target player draws X cards. With Niv-Mizzet on the battlefield, we also get to deal X damage then, because we're drawing that many cards. Windfall, just a good wheel effect for 3 mana. Discard. Each player discards his or her hand, draws cards equal to the greatest number. Chain Reaction, deals X damage to each creature where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. Really good board wipe for a lot of the creature-based decks, so if there's 8 creatures on the battlefield, we just deal 8 damage to everything. Steam Augury, reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent puts 1 pile into your hand and the other into the graveyard. Turnabout, here's one of the key parts of the deck with High Tide as well that you saw earlier. 2 blue, tap or untap all artifacts, creatures, or lands target player controls. So we can play High Tide, tap all of our mana, play Turnabout, untap all of our mana, and maybe we'll even get to flash them back from our graveyard and get even more value from them. So we get to just play a bunch of cards in each turn. Deep Analysis, 4 mana, target player draws 2 cards. It is a sorcery, but we do have Flashback for 2 and pay 3 life. And in Commander, 3 life, not really a whole lot. So, very good value for that one. Of course, Fact or Fiction is in the deck. 4 mana, reveal top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates them into 2 piles. We get to pick. 1 hand goes to our hand and 1 hand goes to our graveyard. Inner Fire, another ramp card. 4 mana, add 1 red mana to your mana pool for each card in your hand. So if we've got, 6 cards in our hand, we play this, so then we have 5 cards left in our hand, so we add 5 red to our mana pool. Another really good ramp card. Another all-star in the deck that I found was Mystic Retrieval. So 4 mana, return an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand. And we also get to flash it back for 2 and a red. So we essentially get 2 cards for the price of 1. Past in Flames, another Storm all-star in Modern. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So that's kind of one of the ways that we can bring back High Tide and Turnabout if they're both in our graveyard. Temporal Fissure, 5 mana, return target permanent to its owner's hand, but it also has Storm. So if we've played 6 spells, we get to bounce 6 things for 5 mana. So it's really good. And also, it's target permanent, so we could just bounce 6 lands if we wanted to in that situation. Expansion Explosion. Expansion, copy target instant or sorcery spell. Explosion, X blue blue red red. We deal X damage and draw X cards, which with Niv-Mizzet in play, we get to, so we deal X damage, then we draw X cards, and then since we drew the cards, we get to deal X damage again, which is really good. Mind's Desire, 4 blue blue for sorcery. We shuffle our library, exile the top card of our library. Until end of turn, you may play it without paying its mana cost. And again, Storm. So if we've played 6 cards, we shuffle our library, reveal a card, and then we can play it, and then we shuffle it. We do that 6 times, so we essentially get 6 cards for free, which unless we hit lands, which is again just a really good value card. Volcanic Vision, 7 mana. We return an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand, and Volcanic Vision deals damage to that card's converted mana cost to each creature your opponents control, and then we exile Volcanic Vision. Again, since it says each creature your opponents control, it could act as a board wipe, so we could get back a Mind's Desire and deal 6 damage to every creature, which is again really good value. And we also get the Mind's Desire back, so it's not just like pick an instant or sorcery, we get to actually get that sorcery back. So Dig Through Time, 6 blue blue Delve. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And then to go along with Dig Through Time, we also have Treasure Cruise, 8 mana with Delve, draw 3 cards. Just really good. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature for 9 mana, but it also costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. So if there's 8 creatures on the battlefield, we just pay a red and deal 13 to everything. Commander Staple. And finally, Commit to Memory. Commit, 4 mana, put target spell or non-land permanent onto its owner's library, second from the top. And then Memory, 6 mana, Aftermath, cast a spell from your graveyard, then exile it. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. And now, 12 minutes in, we will go to the artifacts next. I promise that's by far the longest part of this video. I won't take too much time on the lands, which is the next longest part. But until then, we'll go on to the artifacts. We've got Spellbook, 0 mana, no maximum hand size. Very important to our deck, as we will be drawing a bunch of cards. Is it Signet? Of course, you guys know that. Commander Sphere, again, you guys very familiar. Chromatic Lantern makes it a lot easier to cast Niv-Mizzet, because Niv does have a fairly awkward mana cost with 3 of each color, so Chromatic Lantern really helps with that. Sentinel Tower, 4 mana, basically an Aetherflux Reservoir type effect, if you guys remember that from Kaladesh. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell is cast during your turn, Sentinel Tower deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of instant or sorcery spells cast before it this turn. And finally, Gilded Lotus, 5 mana, add 3 of any 1 color to your mana pool. Just another really good ramp type effect. I'm sure there are plenty of artifacts that I missed out on that would be great additions, but that's what we got for now. So, moving on to the enchantments, we've got Search for Azcanta, Standard All-Star. 2 mana at the beginning of your upkeep. You may look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. Then if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform Search for Azcanta. And then we flip it over, and we get Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, legendary land. We can tap it to add a blue to our mana pool, or we can pay 2 and a blue and tap it to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Very, very easy to find what we're looking for with Azcanta flipped on our battlefield. Firemind's Research, new from Guilds of Ravnica. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on it. We can pay 2 to remove 2 charge counters and draw a card, or we can pay 2 to remove 5 charge counters from it and deal 5 damage to any target. So we can finish off a Planeswalker that way, we can finish off an opponent that way, or we can take away a big threat, a big creature that our opponent has. Mirari Conjecture, 5 mana, Saga from Dominaria. The first lore counter, we return an instant card from our graveyard to our hand. Second one, we return a sorcery. And the third one, until end of turn, whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. And we may choose new targets for the copy. Arcane Melee, another instant and sorcery cost reducer for 5 mana. 1,000-Year Storm. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant or sorcery spell you've cast this turn. You may choose new copies for the. You may choose new targets for the copies. And actually, the final enchantment you guys might not be able to read. But this is Omniscience, 7 and 3 blue. You may cast non-land spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. I actually pulled this at a draft at one of my friend's house for his birthday. He was not too happy that I was the one that pulled it, but you know, that's kind of how it works. I did win said draft also. And now the card that took the longest time to get, the card that delayed this video super long, we've got ourselves Jace the Mind Sculptor. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Matt, Total MTG. This one's for you, bud. 4 mana, 3 loyalty. We look at the top card of target player's library, put that card on the bottom of that player's library. We can put it on the bottom. The 0 is Brainstorm. -1, we can return target creature to its owner's hand. -12, exile all cards from target player's library, then that player shuffles his or her hand into his or her library. So this will put a big target on our head, but, you know, it's Jace the Mind Sculptor. I wasn't going to not include the card. We've also got Jaya Ballard and Rahl Izzet Viceroy to sort of go with Jace the Mind Sculptor in our Planeswalker section, and I'm just going to very briefly scroll through the lands here. We've got Evolving Wilds, Myriad Landscape, Reliquary Tower. I believe there's 11 mountains before we get to the duels. Yeah, I think that was 11 mountains. Cascade Bluffs, Highland Lake, Izzet Boilerworks, Izzet Guildgate, Shivan Reef, Spirebluff Canal, Steam Vents, Sulphur Falls, Swiftwater Cliffs, and Temple of Epiphany are our duels. We've got a nice island here signed by Rob Alexander, and I believe there's 12 islands there. And that, my friends, is the conclusion of Niv-Mizzet Parun and this awesome EDH deck. I've had a lot of fun testing it, a lot of fun playing it against my friends. And they do not have fun, which makes it that much more enjoyable for me. Hopefully, we'll get some gameplay at some point. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what commander you want to see next, and I will certainly try my best to do it. So thank you guys for watching and sticking through this 6-month gap that I've had. Really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Couldn't do any of this without you guys, and I will see you next time.